Hi, and thank you for clicking on this channel. So, if you've clicked on this channel, you have tinnitus, or you've recently developed tinnitus, and you're either terrified, having recently developed it, frustrated, angry, seen multiple doctors, believe that you're going to live with it forever, don't know how you're going to handle it, don't know what to do, have been told by ENTs or other people that there's no cure and there's nothing that you can do about this condition. Well, I'm going to go amongst a vast array of different areas and discuss this. First off, I'm not a medical doctor. I'm not a licensed psychotherapist or psychiatrist. I'm not a nutritionist. I'm a tinnitus sufferer. And I'm a tinnitus sufferer who got this condition about 4.5 months ago. And I developed tinnitus and hyperacusis. And I wanted to share my story because it is a very positive story and it progresses into more positivity every day, although there's some challenging points. And the point of this channel is simply to break through to people who are going through this condition, be it whether they're already in the condition and in the state, or they've just developed it. Now, as we know, when you first develop tinnitus, it is just absolutely terrifying. Initially, it's like, what's that sound? And you may wake up in the middle of the night, you may hear a little ring. For some of us, including me, it was shh, and it can be very alarming, absolutely terrifying, frightening. And, the right thing to do, of course, is to always get checked out by a medical professional. Go in and see an ENT, go and see a qualified medical doctor, let them check you out, let them clear you. Do your due diligence, get an MRI, find out if there's anything wrong. Everybody pretty much goes through the same process, depending on the length of time that this condition goes on for. For me, I had just come home from Texas. It was November, late November. I was in Texas the 23rd of November with family, and a lot of things going on with business. And then on the 26th, we flew home. I got home and I was fine. I had absolutely no signs of tinnitus or tinnitus. I'm in my 40s. And I've had, occasions in the past where, you'll wake up and you'll have some light ringing throughout the course of my life. If you look for, that sound, even in the quietest room in a person who does not have tinnitus, you'll find it. But when I had gotten home, I was fine off the flight, and 2 days had passed, and I had a lot of stress and aggravation from work. And I was never very, very proactive about how to manage my stress, because when you're young, or at any age, you just don't really consider these factors. You don't consider diet, you don't consider stress, you don't consider lifestyle. You kind of just go and do the mundane or regular routine tasks of your day. Well, after getting into an argument with work and then going back and forth with things that are going on, and then naturally being married and communicating back and forth with your spouse and then having your own disagreements, I remember going to bed on the 27th and it was silent. It was dead silent. And I love music. I've been a big fan of playing music my whole life. I like every type of regime of music. And it was one of the most things in my life that inspired me to do everything. My ears and listening to music motivated me. It made me feel and melt, music is emotion. But when I woke up on the 28th at 2 o'clock in the morning, I woke up to a sound that sounded like this. I remember that I had, and I can remember it like it was yesterday, I had a purifier in the room. And I remember having to immediately turn off the purifier. And when I got up and I got out of bed, my ears were absolutely in pain. I can't even describe it, I was physically in pain. So Right away, I thought to myself, maybe I had an earache or an ear infection, or, maybe I have some type of sinus infection or something's going on. I tried to calm myself down, but it was just, I couldn't believe what I was hearing in my head. I had never heard anything like this in my life. And even on the bouts that I had some light ringing or some small tinnitus, nothing like this in my life. I had an acoustic exposure 5 days earlier. I had a large caliber rifle that we shot off with no hearing protection, and no one ever really knows the answer. I didn't have earplugs in, which was a huge mistake. So always protect your ears, and I should definitely know better than that. But I only shot one round, and that happened on the 23rd. So 5 days had passed, and I was like, did not connect the dots. Wow, and all of a sudden I'm trying to put everything together. Is it the gunshot? Is it a sinus infection? What's going on here? Well, as the weeks had progressed and the days had progressed, my anxiety levels went from standard anxiety to just absolutely insurmountable. I couldn't hear. It was very difficult focusing on anything anybody said, and all I did was talk tinnitus, 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 tinnitus to everybody. To my friends, to my family, ad nauseum. Not a single person had a clue what I was going through. Well, as I was going to the doctor's office, and I went into several ENTs, one who treated me absolutely like a dog. I remember going in there and telling them the whole story about what had happened and how this condition had started and what I thought might have happened in this situation. And they didn't say much about it. They didn't comment directly. They decided to put me on a round of oral prednisone and antibiotics. And I did that at a high dosage, which ramped up my nervous system even more, which is basically pretty much very standard practice, I guess, if they're concerned about acoustic damage. I went in, I saw an audiologist. I had an MRI and everything done. I saw my primary multiple times, saw multiple ENTs, second one then thereafter that. And basically they told me that my ears were fine, that I had no acoustic damage whatsoever, that my hearing test came back within normal range. So right away that kind of blew me away. I was taken back that it's possible that how can I not have maybe I thought maybe I perforated my eardrum or, but as the days, people kept telling me, I remember the audiologist and I remember the ENT telling me, oh, it's temporary. And any doctor that I saw was either between the level of it's either temporary or learn to live with it. Everybody was unsure about how the condition specifically works. And I gave it another week or so, and it just became more of an irritant. And I started getting anxious, stressed. It became worse. You have to work during this. I have a family, and I didn't know what to do. I started falling darker into a panic because, like you get a cold, you're going to get better. You get the flu, you're going to get better. You get bronchitis, you get an illness, you know that at some point you have a level of recovery. It's a very standard and basic practice. Well, time keeps going by, and we're heading into about 25 days now, and it takes time to get MRIs. It takes time to meet with all these people, and everything comes back perfectly clear. The 8th cranial nerve, MRI, like I said, everything's fine. So as the days go by, the sound is just terrible, and I can barely listen to the air conditioning. I can barely listen to the television. I have to be careful about being around sounds, and I'm here to tell you that everything is going to be okay. For all the sufferers that are out there, I am an extreme case of hyperacusis and tinnitus, and while you're sitting behind a screen, I want to talk to you. I want to tell you my story, but I want to tell you my story so you can interpret it for yourself, to know that it's okay, there is hope, and it will get better no matter which way you look at it. But there are some very important fundamentals that I want to go through just as a person and as a sufferer that I learned through this. Number one, right now, I have tinnitus. I can hear the ringing in my ears. I can generally hear it above everything else, as I've done now for, I don't know, 154 days it's been. And I'm not supposed to count, but I keep a log, and I do keep a record, even though people say don't keep a record. And it's more now for journaling for diet reasons. What could I be eating? Well, as I met with a group of specialists, they had turned around, and one of the specialists said to me, I was 40 pounds overweight, and said, you need to remove all of the lectins and nightshades in your diet, and you need to lose weight, and you need to exercise. And I'm sitting there like, are you kidding me? That's why I'm coming to your office. I got to hear from my GP. I got to hear from everybody out there. There's nothing that you can do about this. And you're telling me that if I don't eat tomatoes, basically, which is a nightshade, and a cucumber, and I stop eating oats, rice, grains, that somehow this is going to, and corn, that somehow this is going to miraculously fix my tinnitus. And I mean, I challenged the doctor. And he said, yeah, it's going to play a key role. Your diet is huge. He says, but fundamentally, tinnitus or tinnitus is an avid player of chronic stress and how stress is induced by the body. So it kind of got my attention there. And I said, explain this to me. And he made a lot of sense. He said that a lot of people get heart attacks. A lot of people get strokes, brain aneurysms, diverticulitis, and blood pressure problems, bone diseases. He says, do you know how many times those causes or those symptoms are caused by stress? And I sat back and I really needed to process that, but it was very difficult because when all you hear is shh in your ears, you're just trying to figure out how to deal in that current moment or in that current state. So we're probably about a month now, and my mood is just going darker and darker. The stress that it put on my wife was just it was unbelievable. And because it's just so much negative, it's a massive change. And you're literally learning up, how do I go to work? How do I deal with this and put up the act, do my job, which makes it even more complicated, right? And manage my life, because we just can't quit our jobs because we have ringing in our ears. I mean, that's not a solution. So I turned around and after leaving the first doctor, the first professional that I really met that said anything of value, after meeting with 2 ENTs, after meeting with my general practitioner who told me to basically learn to live with it, the ENTs who told me to learn to live with it, and one of the ENTs who, when I went back to him after putting me on 10 days worth of antibiotics, really high steroids, I remember calling him, telling him, look, this has got to be a sinus infection, because I was searching for the answer, the reason. And he had turned around, and the office started getting rude with me. They wouldn't take my calls. And finally, when I got to the doctor's office, he treated me like absolute garbage. And he said, we're not here to discuss your tinnitus, which just absolutely plunged me from a state of barely being able to manage it into the darkest depression. I just, in anger, I was so disgusted and frustrated that I actually looked at the doctor and I said, so basically, you don't want to deal with me. And he said, oh no, I'm going to deal with you. And I couldn't wait to get the hell out of the office because I just didn't know what to do. When I got in the car, I remember my ears were absolutely blasting. They were on fire. They were sizzling, hissing, shishing, and I called my wife completely overwhelmed. I remember being freaked out. I remember my anxiety levels being through the roof. I remember all of it being really just horrifying. and I didn't know what to do. And I remember going back and I had this doctor talk about, diets, and you go on the internet and you're Googling, and then they put time frames in. If you don't recover at this time frame, then it's a chronic condition. And if 1 to 6, 4 months, or 4 to 3, or whatever, they give you time frames. First off, let me talk to you out there in the tinnitus community. As a person who is at a 10, and days fluctuate now, okay, between sometimes I'm a half, sometimes I'm a 1, sometimes I'm a 2, which is always better than a 10, okay? And we'll talk about how I got there in 4.5 months. But what we want to focus on is primarily the stresses and fundamental things that affect you that cause this condition, and also what makes it better, and know that you can get better and you will get better, because I've gotten better. If I've lost some continuity with you guys, I apologize. This is my first video, but I really want it to be a heartfelt story rather than somebody looking to make some type of money off of this, because I have no interest in any of that. I want people to get well because I know where you're at. So as the days went by, and every day all it was ringing, you can barely sleep, I finally turned around and I found a guy on YouTube by the name of Julian Cowan, who is out of England, and he's a tinnitus coach. He's a sacral cranial therapist out of England, and a psychologist that's his primary thing. He had tinnitus for 20 years, and he stated that after 20 years of having tinnitus, he no longer has it. Now, I'm not talking about habituation. I'm talking about no longer has it. So, between reading through the internet and this will never go away, all the negative chat forums, which please, please, please stay away from the chat forums, okay? They do nothing but counterproduct your ability to recover in a number of fashions. One, your mind will not be able to recover because of the negative feedback, and you get stuck in a loop. So here's my research, and here's my keys to people that are out there, and how am I doing at the end of it. I'm living a great life. I'm more or less back to who I am, but I think I'm actually better. And in some ways, in a weird paradoxical type of scenario, this condition pushed me to do things that I probably never would have done in my life. I probably would have been more prone to get that heart attack. I ate pizzas, McDonald's. I love to go out and dine with my wife and have fun drinking and partying and do all those things. I took no consideration of diet. Yet I had this doctor who's telling me, don't eat nightshades and don't eat lectins. And I'm like, what the hell is a nightshade or a lectin? So fast forward, and I start removing things from my diet. And it's a very slow and gradual process. It was very overwhelming. I'm like, you know what? I'm willing to try any snake oil medicine at this point, this nonsense with lipoflavonoids, niacin. I took every vitamin over the counter. None of that stuff did anything. Okay, just for the record. The prednisone didn't do anything. Nothing did anything at that point. But as I started with Julian, I started his videos online, and I was like, wow, this guy is really very calming, and he's very reassuring, and he doesn't have tinnitus anymore, and he's very to the point. He, tells you his position on how tinnitus works and the great common misunderstanding for tinnitus. And what's interesting is there's a very limited group of tinnitus specialists in the United States, in my opinion, that really have this type of knowledge. And that's why I am lucky to have found somebody and have a camera like this to be able to communicate with somebody out in England. So I wrote my story to him. He responded back. I downloaded this app called Quieten, which is the number one thing that I would recommend to all people that have just started or have tinnitus now, or have tinnitus long term. Is this app called Quieten by Julian Cowan is basically the guideline matrix for how I completely started my recovery. there's levels 1 through 7 of where you're at, and most people are stuck. So they talk about things like negativity and catastrophic thinkers, and how this condition affects people who are either negative or real stress heads, or people that, you know, have chronic stress or chronic anxiety, or real shaker movers. This is just one of those things that attaches to them. It's really them saying your hearing is hypersensitized because your body is in a mode called fight or flight or hyperstimulation. Now, essentially, I didn't know how much I could believe any of this. I went back and forth. Was it the gunshot? Was it acoustic damage? What's gone on? Am I sick? What is happening to me? And during that time, you're shaking and you're messed up. Again, I want to reiterate to the tinnitus community, I'm 4.5 months in, and you're going to recover. For any of you that are out there that are in a dark place, know that every one of us that first started in tinnitus was there. It's a very normal part of the process. But I want to reassure you, and I want to tell you, please, don't allow your mind to go into that direction. Your mind, even though this sound can be horrifying and annoying, is still the most important tool that you have throughout your body. Your mind, both the subconscious and the conscious, are critical. So I decided to really study this program. I was with this program every day. I decided to change my lifestyle. I decided to look after Dr. Gundry's work into unlocking the keto code. Lost 40 pounds, which is amazing. Really 38 now. Went into the plant paradox, which talks about nightshades, lectins, and I was blown away. And I started changing my diet. I started exercising every day. I started enhancing my body. And one of the key things they tell you is that you really need to be positive. And nothing hokey. Because, you know, it's real easy, like, you know, 1 minute you're going to go, you know, I can do this. And then the next second, oh my God, I can't handle this anymore. What am I going to do? I'm freaking out. I don't know what. That is, you know, very common in tinnitus. You know, it's a very dividing kind of split. You know, and some of us who are real survivors, at one moment you're like, I can do this, I've got this. You know, but after listening to it for 24 hours, you're losing your mind, especially if you're new to this. Okay, for the people who've had it for a while, they're either annoyed, angry, frustrated, stuck, displaced, or, you know, they've habituated, but, you know, they may not be happy about it. And some people, for the most part, a lot of people who I respect who post success stories, who've motivated me to do this, have come to recovery. Now, there are definitely different styles of recovery for tinnitus. There are those who habituate, okay, and there are those who either come to silence, near silence, have days off where literally there's no ringing, and I'm one of those guys. I have days where when I started out for months, until I started taking my diet, sugar plays a key role. It plays right into tinnitus. Stay away from the sugars. Salt plays a key role. Diet is extremely critical. So I started fasting. I started following guys like Thomas DeLauer and listening to audiologists like Ben Thompson, Dr. Ben Thompson. And they gave reassurances. And like I said, the number one guy was Julian Cowan. He came back with just some of the most amazing tinnitus affirmations and reassurances in his program that were incredible. And his delivery made sense. So while everybody's speculative about this condition, and as much research as I've done, driving myself crazy to figure out this condition, you know, there are so many speculative theories, and people want to know why it hasn't been resolved. Why don't we have a pill? Why? And there's many people that have channels out there. There's some people that are very angry. I know one guy that's out there. I respect him, and he's cured his tinnitus totally. He no longer has it as well. And you wonder, are these guys for real, or are they bullshit artists? And they're not. You know, they've actually cured and resolved their tinnitus. And you're like, well, how is that possible? This is ridiculous. Because I was there. Well, after hours and hours and hours of endless research and being very careful, again, I want to reiterate, Google is like the death trap for all of you new, young tinnitus guys. You will get better. You're going to recover. Do not read any of that nonsense. Do not trust in your doctors. If you've already gotten everything examined and you're medically cleared and they tell you learn to live with it, don't listen to that at all. Okay, that's a bunch of rubbish. It's nonsense. You're going to recover. So going back into habituation and recovery, so I started listening to these matrix levels, 1 through 7, and right now I'm at what they consider level 5 in the program, which I've gotten there which is letting go. I've gotten there pretty quickly. I've been an aggressive businessman my whole life. I've always had the desire to excel and exceed, and this is just one of those things that you can't fight. This is not a fightable condition. Tinnitus, the more you fight it, the more tinnitus is going to push back at you. And you're going to really have a tough time because it is part of you, okay? And it's part of your central nervous system. So you're going to say, okay, Rob, you've got my attention if you're still plugged in. I'd like to know, what did you do aside from changing your diet, listening to Dr. Stephen Gundry, more ketogenic, but not necessarily totally carb restricted, right? Removing poisonous foods like nightshades and lectins. Did that help you? Yes. What did you do to take your tinnitus volume from a 10 to days where you wake up to a 0.5 to a 1 or 2? How did you do that? What did you do? What were your... So to get straight to it, I changed. I started believing that what I am hearing is true, that what Julian Cowan is saying and what Ben is saying is true, that stress and chronic stress and the central nervous system, the limbic system, and the parasympathetic system and the subconscious and conscious mind send all the signals. And what you're really hearing, for all of us real heady people that are out there, are stress heads who have anxieties. And maybe we hide it and we mask it in front of people really well, but deep down internally, you have those conditions. What I did was I followed their advice slowly, and it was tough, huge change. But I wanted to get through this quickly, but not overly stress myself. Because I realized that, well, if these guys are right, the more pressure I put on myself, the more complicated this condition physically became. Because again, you're stuck in that fight. And just because you walk away from it, or think you're going to take a moment or use a masker, once you turn that masker off, there it is. So the first thing I tell you is this. You need to know that you're going to recover. I don't know what your recovery level is going to be, but I'm going to assure you this. The more mindful you are, the more peace you have, the more calm you have, the more that you breathe, the more that you slow down, the more that you take control of your life and relax yourself. Your central nervous system needs to come to a state of calm. You need to really and truly tell yourself, it's okay. You're going to be okay. Because what's happening is, it's, as all the guys have pointed out, it's a round circle. You have your trigger. And for us, the trigger is the initial sound of tinnitus. That sound then goes to the stress factor. The stress factor in the mind starts pushing that signal towards the limbic system. Once it reaches the limbic system is what tells us about fear. We're designed as human beings to look out for fear, whether it's in psychological conversation with work or friends. We're always anticipating the next problem or issues that go on, especially tinnitus sufferers. Well, the problem is that loop, the more that it goes round and round, if you think about it, the louder the sound gets, because now we're really focusing on that. So we're dialed into that sound. You go in the closet, you go in that room, do you hear that? Oh my gosh, how am I going to survive like this? How do I live? How do I do this? How do I survive? So you are going to survive. You are going to live. Please don't ever think about doing anything foolish, because I can promise you, you've got a killer life and kick-ass life, pardon the pun, in front of you. You're going to have amazing days, and this condition is going to fall by the wayside, and it's not going to mean much. And you're going to say, Rob, how can you say that? I'm suffering so bad. Yes, so was I, and so am I, but not now. It's different. You know, your progress depends on how seriously you want to recover and how serious you believe this. People don't really understand tinnitus. You know, they have the theories that the cochlear, the inner hairs, pardon my French, hairs of your ear have been damaged, says the doctors. Okay? Well, if you go to all the medical research that's out there, how many cochlears have been looked at medically? None. Zero. So from the ENT and medical perspectives world, they haven't examined the cochlear with damaged hair, that they understand that the cells that are inside there, the hair cells, these tiny micro cells, don't grow back. Now, yes, damage to hearing and damage to those hair cells cause deafness, but we're talking about tinnitus. I'm not here to discuss deafness and sudden hearing loss. I can't relate to that. But when it comes to tinnitus, the number one thing that the doctors come back to is cochlear damage. They don't know if it's temporary, permanent, temporary timelines, and they put all this data out there and all these placebo effects and so on and so forth. Okay? First off, I want to tell you, if you're in a dark place and you can't handle yourself and you can't pull yourself back in to calm yourself down and start these programs, the number one thing that you need to do is not be afraid to get out there and get help. Okay? There is no shame in physically going out and having either a psychological evaluation, meeting with somebody that does an intake on the phone, because your life is far too valuable to do anything for your friends, for your family, for God. You know, I'm a God-loving man, and I tell you that God loves you, and this is a challenge just like other challenges. We're fortunate that we don't have cancer. We're fortunate that we don't have, brain tumors, and that we can still walk, for those of us who are out there constantly complaining about our tinnitus. And when you're going through it, it's the worst thing in the world. So, and I want to discuss part of my other portion of my onset of stress, which is LASIK surgery that went wrong for me. It took me 18 months to recover, and all I ever did was say I had a corneal erosion. I wanted to do it because I was blind. I had -8 vision, and I said, this is going to be a great miracle. Well, of course I do the surgery just like anybody else, and it's going to be me that something goes wrong. I get a corneal erosion, and it doesn't heal. I've got all kinds of problems with this. Is pre-tinnitus, pre the gunshot, pre everything that went on, and pre that concern with the auditory hearing issues. This is so far behind that. And that went on for months. I went back and forth to the doctor. I couldn't sleep. My eye was in pain. Sleep cycle was disrupted. So you see, there's a lot of variables that came into play pushing on that stress load for tinnitus. No sleep. Constant, my eye, worrying, anxiety, stress. It's a killer. Stress is a killer. Well, lo and behold, 18 months later, my eye fixes itself. After going back and forth with the surgeon, which nobody has any hope. I had no hope. And of course, now my eyes are perfect. I can see great. My LASIK surgery, great. It's a success. But guess what? 4.5 months now, I have ringing in my ears. So I'm going to go back initially to my own tendencies, just like human beings do at all stages, and go, let me freak out. I've got ringing in my ears. What am I going to do? Oh my God, this is the end of the world. How am I going to live like this? Our behavior, and again, our pattern as human beings, in my opinion, we go back to the same conditioned behavior. And going back to the damage, and I know we're touching on a lot, and I hope I'm not losing you, the cochlea, the hair, that there is no damaged cochlear for tinnitus. They can't prove this. I'm waiting for them to come out. That's why they don't have a miracle drug. The key cure is to work on yourself, okay? Allow yourself 5 minutes in the morning for heavy meditation, maybe 15 or 10. Yoga, Tai Chi, mindfulness, being positive, positive affirmations at all times, but real true stuff that penetrate the very core of your soul and your heart that you can feel. Take a moment, relax, breathe. Let yourself know that everything is going to be okay. Don't do it in a hokey way, because I'm telling you everything is going to be okay. Practice breathing regularly. If you say how to breathe, equal breathing is good. Breathe in through your mouth. There are apps that are out there that'll show you breathe in through your nose. Okay, maybe you want to do equal breathing. That's about 7 or 8 seconds, and find it slow, find your pace, and count. Because most people want to breathe in fast. No, the idea is to slow the body down. Breathe in and out through your nose. Do that, in through your nose, out through your mouth. Do that breathing exercise. Do that for 5 minutes. When you're done, stretch. Have a yawn. Yawning, as Julian Cowan will tell you, is absolutely fabulous for the lymphatic system. It absolutely opens everything up. You want to, you can take this yawn to the point that your ears are fluttering. Is that going to instantly cure your tinnitus? No. It's going to calm your central nervous system down. And maybe not that day, and maybe not for a few weeks. But as we continue those practices, we practice meditation, we exercise, we keep our mind focused that we can and will recover from this condition. We remain positive and we stay away from the negative stuff. How long is this sound going to be here? Will I ever recover? Will it ever go? That is a split. That is what Julian will tell you, and that's why I recommend you download Quieten and use that app from Julian Cowan. That is a split. That is where your conscious mind is sending signals to your subconscious mind that prevent you from recovering from this condition, that prevent you from habituating. Many people put maskers out there, and there are some really great masking sounds that you can find on YouTube for free. Ben Thompson, Dr. Thompson, I think it's Ben Thompson, I'm sorry if I got it wrong. They put out audios, sounds to try and match this. Maskers are very good for everybody in the beginning stages because they give you some freedom from what you're dealing with. But it's also very important to be with your tinnitus. But when I say be with your tinnitus, I don't mean be with your tinnitus and just endlessly listen to your tinnitus. It's learning how to go about your day and still live your life and not have the sound annoy you. And most of you are like, Rob, what are you talking about? Do you know what I'm listening to? Yes, I know what you're listening to. I'm listening to what you're listening to. We don't need to compare tinnitus to tinnitus because it's all different. I have days where my tinnitus, 45 days after developing, is pulsatile. One day I wake up, boom, 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 which is when I realized, and that went on for 24 hours, or that went on for, not even 24 hours, that went on for, a month. And that's when I realized, oh my gosh, I really need to cut my salt. And again, the professional said, salt and sugar, maltodextrin, all those things, stay away from them. You look at cured meats, processed meats, they're loaded with salt. It's very important. That's why I go back to diet. There isn't one thing that you can do. It's a lifestyle change if you want to live a productive life and recover. So I have no doubt that I will eventually return back to silence or near to silence because, like I said, there are days that I wake up and it's either silent or it's very close to silent or it's quiet. And there are days that I wake up and it is blaring. And I can tell you that after journaling and logging and writing and getting everything down and trying to figure out this whole crazy science, that the basics come down to stress, how to manage your stress, how to calm your body down. It's going to take months to truly recover. The faster that you acknowledge this, the faster that you accept these things, the faster that you truly begin to work on you and stay mindful and always be hopeful and positive and stop that split. Will this thing ever go? What am I going to do? How am I going to live like this? Oh my gosh, I'm going to lose my mind. I'm losing my mind. You're feeding into this. Tinnitus does not rule you. Okay, it does not rule your life. Tinnitus. You are the master of your life, just like you were before you had this. It's been very difficult for me to sit down and watch TV, or even still, or play the piano. But nowadays, you just get to the point where it's kind of like, who cares? Whatever. Habituation is interesting, and I'm definitely in habituation. And that's a very early stage, because they say that most people don't habituate for 18 months. And like I said, I wanted to recover quickly. I used some masking and initially, and I backed off of a lot of masking. I only use masking when days are really bad. If I have a bad night's sleep, if I don't sleep well, sleep plays a huge role in what your tinnitus is going to be. If you're having night terrors, that's your subconscious mind. That'll activate the fight or flight. You could wake up very startled, panicked, and your ears will be ringing. Don't worry, it'll come back down. If not that day or the next day, it'll come back down. As long as you're practicing mindfulness and relaxing your central nervous system. I'm telling you this out of my own personal experience, of what I've been through. If, you're feeling overwhelmed by it, and you're there, again, I want you to find calming things. Go on YouTube, look for positive stories. Look for those guys like Julian Cowan. Go back to your app that gives you the matrix. It will help you. Quieten will help you get to a stage where you know what to do. You know what your triggers are and aren't. And you also know that you can recover. And knowing that you can recover, especially when everybody else kind of tells you to learn to live with this, is huge. But for those of you who are out there and listening to this and going, man, you're full of shit, okay, you're not going to recover. Look, you're stuck. And you're the ones that I'm praying for, and why I'm doing this, besides the new people who I want to get well with the most. No, you're wrong. You will recover. You need to get unstuck. You need to change your mindset, because your mind sends all the signals. Your subconscious mind and your conscious mind, very different split there. It's like if you go to bed and you start dreaming and you have these crazy dreams. For those of you who dream, you wonder, like, I didn't even think about any of that all day long. How could that possibly happen? These systems communicate with each other. Just like if I point out, like some they do, it's like the collar on your shirt. A lot of guys make this analogy. You don't pay attention to the fact that your collar's on your shirt collar's on your neck, all day long. But if you were to think about it right now, that your shirt collar's touching your neck, you're going to feel it right now. There it is, right? You feel that? That's tinnitus. That's my example of recovering from tinnitus. You will not notice that it is there at a point, at minimum, in habituation, or it will be just not really in your awareness. And you may ask how that's possible, but the brain is amazing. And allowing yourself to go through the process and getting help is critical. To me, like I said, you need to stay on a good diet, a good sleeping routine, exercise regularly, achieve goals for yourself, positive mindset. You're going to recover from this condition. It's going to be. What are other things that I can tell you, about this? Like I said, what do I do if I, wake up and I have a day where it's a 10? I know that it's a 10. Will I use a masker? Actually, no, I don't. I don't use a masker. And you'd be like, but I thought you said that you do. Well, sometimes I do, and sometimes I don't. Actually, I've learned that sometimes it's best just to let your tinnitus potter along, meaning let it be there. See, masking, as good as it is, and as great as it does to help you get relief, and people spend money on those ear things and all that, and you can get that for free on YouTube. Masking distracts a lot of your ability to get better, because you need to adapt to what your sound is. And your sound can change daily. Your sound can be higher, it could be lower, it could be pulsatile, it could be a different pitch, it could be crickets. But you need to adapt to this, because once your mind, consciously and subconsciously adapts to it, it's going to just be like your socks or your collar on your shirt. Unless you pay attention to it, it's really not going to be in your awareness. Now, for those of you who are in the early stages of this, you're going to have a tough time believing that this is true, but I want you to know from me, and I'm telling you, I am recovering, and I've recovered, and I, am not trying to go for goals. I'm careful with stuff on that as far as recovery. I'm happy with where I'm at, but I know that I'm going to continue to recover because as long as I don't think anything is forever. Life naturally isn't forever. The body switches every 7 years. Why should this condition last forever? Unless you truly believe that it'll last forever. If you convince yourself of anything, you can convince yourself of anything. You go ahead. That's how you live your life, is convince, right? Convicted thoughts get you where you're at. So why can't convicted thoughts get you out of where you're at? I met a guy when I was dealing with this, and I remember being like super down and out. It was actually my pool guy, and who services my pool. And I turned around and I was having a really just brutal day. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't do it. Like, how am I going to deal with the pool? How the chemicals? I started talking to him. He was a really nice man, very calming, Bob Ross style painter, like everything's happy, everything's okay. And he saw that something's wrong. We just started up a conversation. And he says, how are you doing today? And I just let it out, and don't be afraid to talk about it with people if it's bothering you. And I said to him, I developed this thing. I have tinnitus. And he goes, oh yeah, I have that. And I'm like, what? Like, oh yeah, you have that? I got out of the blue. He goes, yeah, I got special ear things made for it, but they could never match the sounds correctly because one ear is chirping and the other ear is ee. So he said, oh my gosh, somebody they can relate to. I'm like embracing and holding on to this person for dear life because I'm like, wait, you may have answers. And his answers were pretty much where I'm at. They were, you're going to be okay. I just really don't pay attention to it until somebody brings it to my attention. Now, I'm still at the stages where, without a question of a doubt, I know it's there all day. Yeah, for sure I know it's there. For sure I can hear it. But when it's silent, no, I can't hear it. So it's a very unusual condition, right? I mean, are my cochlear hairs bending up and down and up and down and up and down? That's why one day I'm quiet and one day it's loud. I mean, that's ridiculous. Okay? So you really have to take that stress factor and what your body may be experiencing during that time and your mind, your mental state. And it's not just mental state. If you really examine yourself, how do I feel today? Have you really ever got inside of you? You probably find out that most of you have anxiety or a nervous wreck and not at peace with yourself. I gotta tell you, I am most certainly at peace with tinnitus, and I am most certainly at peace with myself. And if I'm not, and I'm having a bad day, because stress will always be a part of your day, that's where stress management is critical. That's where taking those moments to breathe, exercise, mindfulness, meditation, equal breathing. And like I said, if you have to mask, do it. Do it. Because sometimes masking will allow you a huge distraction, which gives the newer people the break they need so they don't feel so cluttered down by it. But it is also important to learn how to fall asleep with your tinnitus, because until you can learn how to fall asleep with your tinnitus, then you're depending on a device. And without that device, you know what that's going to happen? The little whatever your noises are, oceans, sizzles, chirping, fireplaces. When the noise is not there in the morning, you're going to wake up and go, oh my, first thing out of your, you're going to start freaking out. So you just set your day up to go into a round circle, that limbic circle that we're talking about, the trigger, the stress, limbic system sending the fear signals. And oh no, here we go again. Here's that sound. I'm freaking out. I can't do it. So learning to fall asleep with it, and that was, I think, really what helped me recover really well. And knowing that the next morning when I got up, and I really, God bless my wife, and for having her go through this with me, she's been fantastic about everything. Being positive, and going out there and knowing that it's going to calm down. Because let me tell you, the day that you wake up after not listening to those, maskers, your mind is now adjusting. When you wake up, you're groggy. You're like, oh, what's going on? It's kind of like after a nap. You know, you're spaced out. And that's what happens when you wake up. But a lot of us can wake up and be like, this? Oh gosh. Or, you know, some of us will wake up and be, you know, oh, good morning. You know, I had been negative for years. I didn't know it. I got up every morning. I was kind of like, oh shit, here we go. I'm going back to work. I'm dealing with everybody's problems today. This is what it's going to be. This is my life. And I never realized that I was negative in that aspect. And that's where life changed. That's where that positive section is really critical for your tinnitus recovery. So going back to going to sleep with your tinnitus, it's okay. Just relax. I know it's like you're freaking out. The sound is not going to hurt you. Okay? Your mind thinks it is. You're in fear, you're annoyed, you want to turn the volume down. But you will turn the volume down because your brain is going to learn over time how to adjust to the sound. And like I said, when you don't, you will mask. You will use other things. Stretch. Yawn. Relax. Don't go for all these gimmicks. I've seen people slapping themselves in the ear and blowing their noses. Don't do any of that stuff. Let your body be. Calm your nervous system down. And let's work on the central nervous system. And I may, depending on how people respond, because I have no idea, this is my first video, my first attempt, just to let people know that they're going to recover and that everything is going to be okay. Everything is going to be okay. I want to keep repeating this to all of you out there right now in this very moment who are absolutely terrified. You're going to be okay. You're going to recover. Yes, even you who's had this for 20 years and you believe that there's no chance of recovery, I'm never going to get well from this. No, you can. The rest is up to you. There are a lot of tools that are out there. For those of you who are suffering truly and can't and are stuck and think you're not going to get well, it is so important to get your conscious mind and subconscious mind together. It needs to be bound to know that recovery is totally possible, okay? And as a result, you wake up and your volume's lower. I can tell you yesterday, I had a bad day. The day before, I was at a 10, and it was really annoying. You know, you're never going to escape that annoyance. It's annoying. But I'm like, you know what? Who cares? Who cares? I'm going about my day. I'm going to do what I have to do. And you know what? The best part about it is I'm going to eat my diet correctly. I'm going to stay hydrated. And at the end of the day, when I go to bed, I'm going to relax myself. I'm going to do everything. Massage your face, you know. Get there, relax, just stretch. Give yourself a yawn. Chill. Breathe. Just relax and center yourself before you go to bed. Do some stretching, you know. The neck muscles, everything's connected. Stretch out, you know. Just do natural stretching. Nothing rigorous or crazy, you know. Try to rip your head off. Don't pull on your ears. Don't listen to all these people. Relax. Because the next day you may wake up like I did today and you're at a 0.05 or you're at a 1 and you wake up. Don't overexcite yourself either if your tinnitus goes away that day, and you're like, well, why wouldn't I celebrate? Or if your tinnitus comes lower. Because then you're going to have some type of expectation that, you know, oh my gosh, maybe this is it. Maybe it's going, because the next day, if it comes back, which in most cases for all of us, it does, to some degree, whether it's 1, 2, 3, 10, 6, 7, 8, whatever the number is. But if you give your mind, again, the signals that you're going to wake up the next day and you have a lower volume, and you're like, I think I've got this thing. The mind plays games on you. It plays tricks. The next morning, you may be blasting, and then here's what happens. You're back in the cycle. You're like, yeah, he's wrong. I can't do this. I'm freaking out. No. Don't go there. Been there, done that. Most of us tinnitus sufferers have done that. Don't do that. Don't set yourself up. Don't set yourself up for timelines. Just enjoy the day. Live your life in that day. Do everything that you really want to do in that day that didn't mean anything to you prior. That, you know, because, you know, before you had this, you could do whatever you wanted with sound. And it, like I said, it doesn't rule your life. But do the things you want. Enjoy it and go, you know what? This is a great day. I am blessed to be here. This is awesome. And live it up, because you're going to get many of those. And that's why a lot of people infer this to this condition as a temporary condition. Well, let me ask you, if I go to a 1 to a 10, which lasted for, I don't know, 2.5 months before I really found help. Forget about all these medical doctors proving that I had no tumor on my 8th cranial nerve. Thank God, I'm blessed. You find out that you're okay. The whole process is very challenging at first. It can be very challenging at any stage, but that is up to you. I just want to provide some support and hope. I'm not huge on exposing myself out on YouTube, but I promised myself, and I felt that it was really important to captivate and talk to audiences that are out there that are scared and that don't know what to do, or that may not have the financial resources or the know-hows to do these things. Like I said, reiterating, it's not one thing. It will come down and temporary. People refer to times in temporary. And I apologize if I'm being redundant, but going into temporary, because this isn't scripted, going into the idea of temporary. People tell me to be temporary. Well, to some degree they're right? It's not permanent. Because if I can wake up and one day it's a 1, and another day it's a 2, and another day it's a 10, then that's all temporary. That's temporary fluctuations, spikes. You go through spikes, and it's very normal to spike for a variety of reasons. Again, salt, sugar play a big role. For you guys out there, I really want to talk to you again about these 2 books for me. I'm not an endorser or promoting anybody. Research. Research does research. Find out about things that you're ingesting and putting in your body. People don't think, we buy foods today. I want to go in and talk about the sugar business, and I want to talk a little bit in your tinnitus, and I want to talk about the sugar business, and I want to talk about the cocaine business. Okay, just make it simple. I don't know which is worse, food markets and sugar or cocaine. I'd probably blame the food market industry and the sugar industry, and I had no idea of this until 4.5 months ago. So paradoxically, I can turn to you and say to you that somehow this sound that came by, these warning bells, has, in a most unusual way, been the biggest blessing. Can you believe that I'm actually saying that this ringing is a blessing? Yeah, because I lost 38 pounds, okay? I'm healthy, right? And I learned so much. We're an amazing creature. We aspire to survive. And that survival went into reading. And I found out that sugar is basically completely, you don't realize how poisonous it is. And most of us know, but you don't care. And it's in everything you're eating. It's in your breads. It's in your grains, your oats, your cereal, all of your canned foods, and sodium. Sodium's in all your preserves, your pickles. You wait till you have 2 pieces of prosciutto and find out that you're eating, 1,000 milligrams of sodium when you're only allowed 2,200 to 2,500 milligrams a day. You see what that does to your tinnitus when you push past that. That's why diet becomes critical, because you want to find the lines. Carb Manager, which is a website that's online, when you're lost and you're trying to figure out how to do this, can actually help you plan your day to know how much salt. Really found that was a huge resource. I have it on my phone, amongst having the Quieten app, amongst having, access to these sound devices, sound things that I try not to use or use very rarely. Carb Manager can help you manage your day. It can help you tell you how many, what you're trying to do objectively. And for me, I'm, trying to, continue to cut carbohydrates and, eliminate any possible foods that are causing inflammation. And like I said, the sugar market, terrible for you. It's a killer. It's known to cause cancer. It's known to cause deterioration of bone, teeth. Imagine how else it affects your body fundamentally. So I remove all oats, grains, rice, lectins, nightshades, breads out of my diet. Like, oh man, this must be, with tinnitus, doesn't that stress you out? No, actually, I have some of the most robust, unbelievable meals and love my diet and enjoy my life. And fasting, physically body fasting. Talk to you about that as you progress into this. Fasting is very good, and intermittent fasting is very good for tinnitus. I don't know why. For me, the effects are just marvelous. That was recommended by my guy Julian Cowan as well. And he had pushed me onto a YouTuber called Thomas DeLauer. Thomas DeLauer kind of tells you how to break into doing. I mean, I fasted as far as 48 hours, not hungry because I'm in ketosis, and I'm not recommending that people go into ketogenics or not. Go into pure keto. What I recommend about and love about unlocking the keto code is really, what you're trying to accomplish and your unrestrictions about trying to be healthy but yet lose weight loss. Naturally, a keto diet would tell you to be under 50 carbohydrates, and for sure I'm there because I just feel better and want to be healthy. And I want to kill this. That's why I went on the diet. I was like, maybe it'll help. But what it did was it improved my overall mood. And then you start finding out things about MCT oil, right? When you're in keto, and how are you not exhausted? Doesn't that press your test? No, because the more research that you do as you're getting well and you're recovering and you're exercising, meditating, breathing, and doing all these things, the more that you do that, the more research and more things open up to you, the more your lifestyle starts changing, the more you start changing for the better. And like I said, paradoxically, as this condition has, in the most amazing way, these alarm bells have totally changed my life. Otherwise, I love to make, I have a pizza oven. I love to make fresh pizzas and cook fettuccine Alfredos and all that. I'm not saying you can't have an unblanched almond flour pizza, and I'm not saying you can't have ice cream. Look into different brands, like Rebel or, Enlighten, or, and I'd actually stay away from Enlighten. I'm not that I'm endorsing anybody. I just recommend Rebel is a great company. But there are a lot of products that are out there as substitutions, and you're like, well, Rob, this is crazy. You're all over the place. We're talking about diet, because it's all related. It's all related to your overall well-being, your total circle of health. Once you start fueling your body with healthy things, again, let's talk about the food market, sugars, proteins. Let's talk about organic, non-GMO. Let's talk about what you eat, okay? The chickens that you're eating, what are they eating? Okay, they're eating corns, they're eating grains, they're eating things, they're eating lectins. Okay, they're also being injected by antibiotics. You don't know how that's affecting your body. I have no idea, but I can tell you, since I've removed myself and was promised by my doctor, who said, "Listen, you got to do this," who's a professional, and I didn't believe it. It will help. It is a fact, and they are. You're going to find out what polyphenols are. You're going to find out all this stuff. You got to do the research, though. It really helped. So when you're eating, for me, I stay away from cow meat. Regular meat, I like ground lamb. If I'm going to eat meat, if you're going to eat meats, it should be farm raised. Okay, it should be farm fed. It should be organic. It should be non-GMO. Okay, again, don't fall for range-free, cage-free. Those are bullshit words like, all 100% beef and all that nonsense when it comes to diet. Those are names of companies. 100% beef is actually a name of a company. Don't fall for that. That's why these books and reading and learning with this condition and how this condition can really improve your life if you use it as a tool. I promise you that you can enhance your life so much. When it comes to fish, or fish products, farm raised, don't eat it. You should be eating wild food. Again, am I saying that's going to correct your problem? And no, but it certainly is going to help, right? Because if you think about it, those fish are grown in tanks and they are fed a certain way. They are spread with certain chemicals. They are fed with certain antibiotics. I mean, it's like cows with RBST. You need to go with grass-fed butter or, organic butter or ghee, because this stuff is poison that they're feeding you. And you got to wonder how all this stuff affects you, and the salt contents that are in everything and the sugars that are in everything. Read the label. You'll get into this eventually. Use your tinnitus to help you. Use your tinnitus to rebuild your life. Don't let it freak you out. I'm sharing a story with you, and again, I have no idea how this is going to do. I don't know if people are going to really listen to this or be bored by it, but it is a reality. And like I said, if you take all these things in encumbrantly and use them together, here I am 4.5 months later. I know that I'm approaching with tinnitus. recovery. Like, I believe truly in my heart that I will make a full recovery. And if not, at the bare minimum, I'm already in habituation. So it doesn't mean anything at this point. And even if it's a bad day, who cares? You're going to go about your life. And if you're challenging that right now, again, I reassure you, to all the new people that have this, don't allow yourself to go in that dark place. Use the resources that we talked about here. Play it over and over and over again in that Quieten app. Those reassurances, those positive tinnitus affirmations. Go and find the positive people that tell you that they recovered, because they have. Just like me, they've recovered. I think that's really, really key and very important for you. And again, I want to quote Julian, this sound will go. Your mind will move on to more important things. The sound is basically boring and irrelevant. He's got a very direct statement that opens up as a positive tinnitus affirmation that I just absolutely love. And I would urge you to play that over and over again in your head to get that into your conscious awareness, so that it can send signals to your subconscious mind that this is a very changeable and very movable feast, that you will recover. Slow down, relax, take it easy. I'm a guy that can move at 1,000,000 miles an hour, but when I know that it's time for me to breathe, and I know when it's time to settle down, breathe. We can relax together. We can slow down. I'm very excited about talking to you guys about this subject. Forgive the energy. It's because I'm passionate, because I know that you're going to get well. And, again, if I'm being repetitive, it's because you need to hear the repetition. You need to hear that, because if you're in a dark place, you need to know this condition is going to get better. You will recover. Take it slow and follow my steps. If you don't want to follow my steps, find yourself a good program. There are a lot of professionals that are out there that, can help with audio devices, things like that. But for me, top guys, Julian Cowan Hill, those are the, and I'm going to look up one thing real quick for you guys in this. Just give me 1 second. I just want to get his name right. It's Dr. Ben Thompson, Pure Tinnitus. So Dr. Ben Thompson, I think he's excellent, because he goes through the science of tinnitus and how it works, as well as does Julian. And I think that it's a great channel to also help you. And they've developed some really great sounds that are online for people that are physically trying to match their tinnitus sound when they're in recovery. Anyway, for all of you out there who are trying to recover and, scared or in a really dark place, please don't be. Don't worry. Jesus is with you. God is with you. God loves you. He didn't make you to break you. He didn't make you to have you be afraid and walk away in perilous fear that the sound is going to kill you. Okay? Be strong in the Lord. Have faith. Have faith that you're going to be okay, because I'm telling you, you are going to recover. Everything truly is going to be okay. But like I said, there's a lot to this. And it's okay. Just take one step at a time. Tinnitus and recovery, it's a gradual process. It's slow. It takes time. Expect your timeline to take, a few months to build in. If you want to accelerate, just be positive. Get into that real positive space. Hang around with positive people. Believe it or not, just real quick before I end this video, I remember when I started complaining about this and I was really just over my limit, I would turn to my wife, and I still do. I do this, and I'm like, you can't believe what I'm hearing. And my wife asked me, when we're going through this, I hear you keep repeating yourself, I have, ringing in my ears too. And I'm like, oh, you're just saying that because, you want to make me feel better. And actually, my wife has had tinnitus for years, and she's so strong-minded that she never discussed it. She doesn't even talk about it. It doesn't mean anything to her. That's how habituated and how recovered she is. She doesn't even know it's there. She doesn't even put it in mind. She'll wake up sometimes in the middle of the night and tell me that, especially on a stressful day, that it's blaring, and I never got it. I never understood that, and I sorry to throw that out at the tail end of this video, but I really should aspire to say that for her, it doesn't matter. It affects everybody differently. And then I found out how many friends had it and was shocked. Like nearly every friend that I had was turning around, at least 3/4, and like, that, oh yeah, that's all stress. I hear that, or that, shh. I'm like, seriously? So don't gauge your tinnitus, your sound versus their sound. None of that's gonna really benefit you. It is good to relate. So if you have a partner or a friend that has it, you talk about it, but again, don't talk about it in a negative way. Got to get off that negative train and get on that positive train. And, that's probably where I'll end this video is, using Julian's work is, we talk about catastrophic thinkers and negative thinkers. And then we talk about people that are in the positive mode. So let's look at it as a train station, right? Thoughts are like a train station. You have a negative train that is going to be, let's say the negative train is to the right. Okay, let's say it's this way. Your mind's going to go to the right. Okay? And you're going to get on that train and something's bothering you. And you just let it go over and over and over and over and over, and you repeat yourself. That train just goes. It doesn't matter what the subject is or what the core material of it is. At the end of the day, that train will go. It will continue to go, and you just take off of the day. But rather than doing that, my recommendation to you is to be aware that you're about to get on that negative train. You're about to board on and say goodbye, because your tinnitus is going to go through the roof. Stop yourself. Take a breath. Take 5 seconds, breathe 5 seconds, and know that there is a train left. Switch gears and think about a place that you love. I don't know why, but I love visualizing the idea that, that I get on a train to the left that's going to take me to the Swiss Alps. And that this is going to be a beautiful train. It's going to be cold outside. And then I'm going to get into this warm, cozy cabin that has a bed in it. And then I'm going to lay in there. And it's going to be so comfortable, and I'll put my face and press it against the glass, and I can feel the cold of the glass. And I breathe, and I can see my breath and fogging up onto the window. And I'm just breathing and relaxing, and I hear the sound of the train. And I see with my eyes closed the snow caps in the background, and the snow and the mountains. I was just there mentally. That's what meditation is. That's what using, that from my mentor, my teacher, Julian Cowan, who I'm learning from. I'm just, learning how to recover. I'm just a person who has no degree or ability to tell you how this works. I'm not qualified. But I am a person who can tell you that this is how I'm recovering. And if that helps you, then that helps everybody. That's what I want to do. Put yourself on that positive train. Don't go down there. And watch your tinnitus over time. It'll come down. Anyway, if you like this video, give me a thumbs up. If you don't like this video, let me know. I'll take it down. Like I said, I really am trying to try something new. I'm really exposing myself to help the tinnitus community. And I'm sure I'll put out more postings. Maybe we'll do some meditation or other things together and get into it. But there's so much, and I know that this has gone on for quite a while. And again, it's unscripted. But there's so much that I'd like to talk to you about. So thank you so much for joining. And God bless you guys all. And remember, positive thinking, you will recover. And have a great day. Be blessed.